Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery and I've got a couple systems out here on the bench already, ready to go. In fact, I've got my glove on too. But before I get my hands dirty, why don't we get into some information about the systems that we're going to be checking in on today. The ones that are out here on the bench are what I'm referring to here on this list as buddy pair, number one. So I've been pairing up my systems, treating them as buddy bins or sister bins for a while now, always coming up to the bench with one of the systems and then bringing it back, coming up with the second one. And it was at this point 86 days ago with these two systems right here, I decided, hey, why don't I put them out here side by side next to each other. It'll kind of give me this feeling like I'm dealing with something significantly greater than I've got as a whole. I don't have any. I guess out in the garage I've got some of those huge totes that are about this size and much deeper, but I don't use those for worm farming. I use these bus bins, and putting two of them side by side pretty much makes me feel like I'm working on a system about the size of, maybe a big tote, I don't even know what the capacity of those things are, but way bigger than I prefer handling. I like stuff this size, but basically that was 86 days ago. There's 8 feedings ago. Surprising that we've been doing it that way. Well, one of them was missed. We actually came into these two systems thinking that there were two other systems, mistaken identity sort of situation, and I went ahead and I fed these two systems only maybe 3 days, I believe. 3 days after they had just been fed this way, and then they got pulled up onto the bench because they were thought to be other systems that were due for feeding. And they sort of got, wow, look at progress here. So these systems kind of got a little bit of a feeding glut there for a short while. Now it's here where you can already see that I'm beginning to engage entirely with what I'm doing. And all the while, completely unaware of the fact that the camera's not even pointing at the bins. It's still pointing up in narration mode. So I'm already at this point talking about the state of the bin, and we're excavating, going down, making room, adding the food, doing all the work. Only later to realize that, oops, totally forgot to film all that. Well, I guess at this point, best I could do is try to pick up where I left off, and that means come on in here and finish backfilling the this opposite edge that I had tilled up earlier. Oops, still see some of the pumpkin over there. Make a little bit of room so we can go ahead and inspect the opposite edge. I tell you, a lot of my systems are starting to come across as possibly being more damp than they need to be. I mean, it is nice to see that the material for the most part wants to flake apart when I try to encourage it to, when I'm breaking it apart, but I think the better measure is one where the stuff just sort of flows on its own, just under the force of gravity, and can break apart out of being a clump like this and flow right through your fingers without any assistance. And I don't know, maybe that is a little bit extreme. Maybe that's way too dry. So there I go. I just screwed up again. Been trying to do things, and I explained it in the section where I was not filming the bins. I've been trying to encourage myself to do certain things, and I did it pretty good up until just now, where I excavated both bins at once, and then I fed both bins at once, and then I inspected this far edge all at once. And now here I broke the pattern by checking everything that had to be checked over there and covering it back up, and now we've got to just get caught up over on this system too. So, it's just for effect, I guess, or maybe to get my brain thinking that this really is a bigger system. But until I really convince my brain to intuitively see it that way, for some reason I do feel like I'm falling back to doing things in a more bin by bin approach as to seeing them as two wholes. So one thing I mentioned while we were working in there that I fast forwarded through was that the paper top coverings that had been on here, those newspaper bits, are going to be replaced since they were just scraps. But luckily the feeding zone indicators are going to go right back in where they were because they're holding up great. And for that matter, I just don't have replacements. So little replacement top covering paper, but recycling and reusing the feeding zone indicators to go one more round. All right, so this way, with the camera already pointing down, there's a much better chance that we're not going to miss the start to finish maintenance of the next two systems. But either way, it's regrettable that we didn't get to see all the stuff going on in this system. But luckily, that last little inspection we did of the two outer edges gives you a little sense of what's going on in these systems. So let's get on over to the two younger systems and get them fed next. So this time I think I've got the camera pointed the right way. The focal point here is going to be, I believe, here in the younger system. That's 168 days of age, getting its 15th feeding today versus the 186-day-old system getting feeding number 20. It's here in the younger system where we've got a bag that's been in there for 44 days now. It's a, as you can see there, compostable bag, or supposedly compostable, labeled that way. Sometimes I do wonder what that actually means. Makes me wonder if a cold composting environment like a worm bin can do it, or is that really intending to say that it's a hot composting environment that's needed to make that happen? Alright, so I'm always kind of trying to decide, do I fish worms off the plastic or do I just cover it up? I guess we'll cover it up, and we'll cover it up with this other plastic here. This way any worms that are stuck to the plastic can simply stay there and hopefully not wander off into a dry space. Here too, it looks like we're in good shape when it comes to these feeding zone indicators, so we'll get to recycle these or reuse them, if you will. That's cool. Here too, I guess if a couple worms stay on this, hopefully they stay put and don't go wandering off into dry places. You can see we went pretty generous with the top coating of leaves. And today I think that the theme for adding extra bedding is going to be, I've got a whole bunch of paper towels and napkins here. And I thought that that stuff right there would make for some good bedding. And sometimes it's kind of nice to use this top covering leaf stuff as a good foundation for the feeding as well. So I'm wondering if we want to try to preserve some of it so we could scatter it across the top one more time after we're done here, or should we just fold it in and include it as part of the feeding? It probably would be a welcome little treat for them down there. As you can see, some of it's actually still dry out here, so we really didn't get too much action. So down here too, it looks like we used leaves as bedding for underneath the feeding last time. Some of it's still holding up pretty good, and the banana peel, oh, full of bananas. But it's also, I believe we're probably near, there it is, okay. That was cantaloupe rind right there. I want to try to get the worms off this bag so that we can carefully reposition it and try to see if we could spot any obvious deterioration. I guess a good sign might be a worm actually burrowing right through it, as I see right there. And right there too. Because I think that to me would probably mean that they're nibbling on it. Not just finding a hole that formed on its own and crawling into it. And if that's the case, then this thing's going to be a goner pretty soon. There's worms all over it. I probably did knock off a good number of them in the process of just, you know, pulling it out of there so we can take a closer look at it. So I'm confident that that thing's actually, well, fairly confident at this point. Don't know to what degree, but it does seem to me like it's making progress. So the claim of it being compostable is, I guess, even for cold composting environments, not just requiring specifically a hot composting environment. So that was kind of cool. Now, as we continue to open a trench to put today's feeding into, as we make our way over to the other system, I don't believe we have any oddball things to look for over there. So let's get this party started. Let's evict these little guys from this feeding zone too. Here and there, I guess we're going to bump into some of the last feedings, such as these banana peels. Maybe we are missing opportunities to find worms mobbing the banana peels. Even some of this green stuff, whatever that was, I'm surprised. And something like this corn cob goes way, way back. And a stem of pumpkin. Interesting little chunks of stuff down here. I guess maybe to try to compensate for the fact that the other system has a cool compostable bag in it, we started putting stuff like pumpkin stems and stuff like that into here to see how they do. That's what we have right here, another more intact pumpkin stem. This is just a fragment of pumpkin stem. And the rest is just leftovers, cantaloupe peel or cantaloupe rind or whatever it's called. And plenty of worms, enjoying whatever's left over of the last feeding. After 10 days, I thought that the green stuff would be all gone. That's why it's a little surprising to find a fragment of that here. Other things like banana peels, I certainly expect to still be around as leftovers, cantaloupe rinds, corn cobs. Certain things you're just going to keep bumping into over and over again. So I think we're in good shape here. Below the napkins that I'd like to use as part of our bedding for the feeding today, I'd like to also include some of my nice prepared bedding, and you can see I went pretty generous there. And the other system being 300 days of age, I felt like it might be time to start thinking that system get more into like a foraging mode. So the only bedding I put in there was the top covering, pieces of paper that had been in there that got worked so heavily that they were not even whole pieces anymore. They were just all over the place. So napkins, paper towels, even some fancy colorful napkins. How many of them we got here? We got a few of them. Somehow this stuff though to me feels like it's softer, you know, like soft enough that you can, you know, kind of wipe your face with it. And, you know, I'm just comparing that to perhaps maybe the piece of paper that comes out of your printer. How that stuff's kind of hard, and I wonder if maybe because of the fact that it's softer, usually at least I've noticed that some of these napkin type paper towel sort of materials seem to really vanish quickly in the worm bins. So let's get their feeding deployed. I tell you, it's kind of weird when you make kind of a major screw up, something that you do so regularly, and then you think you've already got it down to it being almost like a, you know, second nature activity. Firing up the camera and filming some worm feedings. It's kind of weird when you come off of a major screw up like that. Kind of makes you question if you have all your marbles, or maybe didn't get enough sleep or something. What explains that, you know? Distraction? I don't know. So we got rid of all of our food that we came down here with, all of the pumpkin, all of the coffee, and we even got to be pretty generous down here with some of the bedding. Should we be even more generous? I think we could be. I just spent a little bit of time the other day whipping up a few gallons of prepared, well, not prepared bedding, because this is what I consider as my prepared bedding, where it's all moistened and mixed with leaves. Just shredded cardboard paper. Got a whole bunch of that stuff all set to go. And maybe even when we sprinkle a little bit of this worm chow down into this this freshly added bedding, maybe it'll make it even more interesting for the worms. I don't remember, did we put any grit in? I can't remember, but in case we forgot, and chances are, knowing me, I probably did forget, we'll give them a little extra. And here and there, I'm just still bumping into other things that I think we can just throw in here as recyclable stuff. Let's see, C11 roast pork lo mein, iceberg lettuce, avocado, shopping list, and what is this? jalapeno seeds, which did not sprout for me. All right, let's get these feeding zones rebuilt and covered back up. And you know, something we did last time, which we sort of failed to do here, was try to draw some extra attention to this compostable bag by putting it right alongside all the freshly added foods. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm just superstitious and don't want to backpedal so far to actually have to redo something that I totally missed. So what's in the past is in the past. So I put the recycled old foods on top of the compostable bag to see if it'll spur on any more worm activity. I mean, I do wonder if it's me attracting them there being what causes the activity, or are they just attracted to that stuff because of its own attractiveness? I don't know. I'm going to leave these leaves over here so we can use them at the end to scatter out across the top. I kind of like that feeling of the system having a whole bunch of nice natural materials out on the surface. I mean, I'm putting shredded newspaper and cardboard bits down into my systems all the time. It's all, you know, processed with the shredder, made into little confetti size strips of paper. That's why it's kind of nice to be able to put in a little bit of leafy material and restore that sort of more natural appearance. And kind of makes it just a little bit more welcoming. Yeah, this system definitely seems to have a bit more moisture content. Oh, let's get this little guy back in. Alright, I could see that a couple of these little guys really got put off with my aggressive tilling. Just want to get them away from the wall. I just kind of started staring into this bin a little bit, and I started spotting cocoon, and I saw a couple more over there. There's another one right there. So I'm not sure from the angle of the camera if they're visible, but from here I can definitely see them, which is always a great sign. So I think the time has come to let these little guys relax, get back to work. Pardon the disruption, guys, but hopefully you enjoy the yummy treat of pumpkin that we just threw in there, and the nice little boost to the bedding we included as well. And this system, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't sweat it in terms of, you know, sensing things to be maybe a little bit more moist than I would want them to be, but eventually it does seem like it's a situation that I would probably want to try to turn around soon. And you know, as time goes on, as the heat starts working less and less, as the temperature rises outside, the drying effect of the heat will begin to taper off and diminish until it completely ends, and then things will swing the other way. And all of a sudden there'll be all this humidity coming in from outside and making it almost impossible for my systems to release any of their moisture content to evaporation, and then I'll be complaining about how damp things are again. All right, let's get these little guys covered up. I guess this little leafy material is sort of holding up. There's little bits of it that actually survived, and oops, let's try to get this little active worm. That one little guy keeps cruising like he's gonna walk out. I don't know if it's the same one that I backfilled earlier, but there's one really active worm over there that at this point hopefully is diving and not climbing. Because we're done here. The only thing remaining is to bring back these plastic coverings and cover up. There was 2 sheets of newspaper out here. One of them covering each system is more of a shade, you know, because the light can pass through this translucent material here, and I don't know, possibly make it seem like it's way too bright out here on the surface to kind of ward off worm traffic. And that's the reason I just put these out here sometimes as shade. I was tempted just to use it as supplemental bedding, but we'll go back to the way we found it. All right, everyone, that's it for our check-in. Kind of one riddled with little technical glitches, and maybe not even technical, right? It was a human error, not mechanical error that I could attest that to, but whatever. Try to do better next time. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always very much appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.